Hello and welcome to the Opportunity Talks, powered by the EPFL Future Leaders platform. In each episode, we bring you conversations with cutting-edge innovators, disruptors, and dreamers who dare to go off the beaten path and drive meaningful change. In this episode, Laura has a conversation with Madeleine Dowd, founder and CEO of Helm Innovation, which creates innovative marine safety solutions.
Thank you very much, Madeleine, for joining the Opportunity Talk, and thank you very much for sharing your experience. So to begin with, I guess it would be great to say to our audience a bit of introduction about you and Helm Innovation. So how big is the company? Feel free to, the floor is yours.
Absolutely, which thank you very much for having me as part of the conversation. My name's Madelaine Dowd, but if you see me on the street, please call me Maddie. My background has been within disaster resilience design. So whilst I was studying, I was part of an amazing project that was only 2 weeks looking at a disaster out at sea. And that 2-week brief has ended up being a 6, 7, 8 year long project now, which is Helm Innovation Limited. So we're a company that provides safety mechanisms to save lives out at sea, quite simply. And as a result of that, we've been able to create patented products which are now licensed out around the world and produced globally. So it's been an amazing opportunity, and one that we now support other startups in doing so through the Cross Design Studio, supporting other life-saving inventions as well as startups in general.
Thank you very much, Madeleine. And you already somehow mentioned that, but I guess if you can talk about what exactly is the challenge that you decide to focus on and why it matters, in the context of the business, but also for society in general.
Absolutely, which the business came about whilst I was doing my master's studies, but when I was doing my bachelor's studies, I was given an opportunity to go out to a disaster zone in Japan. So looking at tsunami affected areas. And through that, I was given enough insight to realize that there's a real problem happening out there, and to see that designers actually have an opportunity to help. But trying to frame how I could help was something that I struggled on quite early on. So it took those years of university to be able to kind of challenge myself and my expertise, which coming into a 2-week long brief, looking at a challenge of saving lives at sea, it really resonated with me, with a background looking at tsunami relief. Coming into this with 2 weeks to be really ambitious and hopefully come up with a solution, it was something that myself and the team that were working on the product, we all had the drive, and thankfully it paid off. And we were looking in the wrong places at the right time, which meant that we identified where some issues were, which we were able to address. But the real challenge for me is using design in general to save lives. I come from a family of nurses, but I've never had the stomach for nursing. So it's trying to find a way of channeling that kind of caregiving, but through design. And if I can do that within the projects that I pick up or the business that I create, that's a very fulfilled life for me.
Thank you, Madeleine. And you mentioned there's been an underlying motivation as a group project, and then because of your personal interest. But if you want to focus more on the idea, what really motivates you, why you decided to kind of personally, I guess, you mentioned your family, but what kind of drove your motivation to focus on this specific topic?
Absolutely, which, as I said, it was a 2-week brief that got really out of hand, and we've continued to work on for a long time. But the motivation for me really came from the fact that there were so many people engaging with us whilst we're in those scoping stages, trying to figure out what the problem was to be able to identify a solution. And we had so many people coming to us saying, when are you bringing it to market? We need this. And I never really saw myself as a business person. I never really had an ambition to go into business in general, but it was the people, all of the various people that I've met along the way that had said, we need this, it doesn't exist, how do we get this? And the motivation really came from that, and it being a life-saving mechanism, and something that there are thousands of people out at sea bringing ships in and out of ports, but this isn't an area that's had innovation in over 300 years. And all it was just a rope ladder up the side of a ship. And there were so many various factors that were so dangerous. And there's this acceleration into automation. So looking at hydraulic plates, looking at helicopters and drones. But the reality was they were always going to have to fall back on having someone climbing up a ladder that's 20 meters up the side of a ship in any condition out at sea to bring a ship into port. And the fact that people were going beyond that was really problematic because it's a really human problem. It doesn't always have to be technology. It can just be the right idea and asking the right questions to get you that solution.
I guess, like, because you mentioned how much people have been influential for driving you in terms of a person, and then what really drives you already as a designer, but also like the challenge, the social challenge. Can you tell us more about who are the people that really helped you to, let's say, really drove your motivation, your passion towards continuing towards this route, in this route?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Which there was a massive team of us that were part of this initial competition, which I'm a very competitive person, so already they have my attention and motivation. But within the group, all of us focused on different elements of the design to pull it together into this final pitch, in which we won most life-saving potential. And it came to a point at the end of our studies where we were having to make choices on career paths and what we were going to do. And for me, I had a real passion in bringing this to the market, bringing it to people and those various pilots and seafarers that had influenced the design, that I felt like they still had some ownership of it in a positive way, that it was a responsibility of mine to give it back to them. So the team nominated me CEO, seeing the drive, the life-saving potential aspect, and I've continued to push to bring the product to market based on people just saying we need this, and having an amazing team that came together to create the idea. So that motivation will continue to push me until there's 2 of these on every ship in the world.
It's interesting. I've been describing the fact that there's been like a personal drive, a value that within the fact of working in this specific aspect. And then there was also finalizing this as a product and developing in collaboration with other people. But if you want to talk about your approach, how do you think, how you could define that? Is it something that is a combination of both? So what is your approach? What has been your approach to develop this challenge further?
So there are so many different ways that people go about creating a startup, never mind maintaining it to the point that it's respected as even a small to medium enterprise, which I'm quite happy to be called a startup and to stay there, because I think it means we're at the forefront of innovation, I'd like to think, and that we're constantly questioning. And there are various business models that we've spoken about, like lean startups, and that being kind of minimizing risk, which is something that I've always been aware of. As a young person, the things that I do at the beginning of this journey are going to impact me for the rest of my life. So I've had a very kind of head and heart approach to the business, in the sense that I have to be smart in thinking about looking after myself as an individual, but also pursuing the passion and making sure that that sense of responsibility and those people that I hold very dear to me for helping in the journey of creating the product, making sure that those 2 things are balanced. So I'm not sure in terms of approaches if any of them are niche, but I think making sure that people are heard and that there's agency during the research phases right at the beginning was so important. So an approach that I was taught was derive, which is a fancy way of saying people guiding you from person to person. So if anything, it's being invited into those conversations, because those are the people that want to support you. And those people have continued to support the business as well as myself for many years after. So if anything, it's been more a case of almost building a tribe of people that are championing getting this product out there and saving lives. And that continues to inspire me, those people. So in terms of the kind of business approach that's been taken, it's been a combination of ensuring that I've got inspiring people around me to keep me motivated, as well as managing my own personal risk in terms of what I'm throwing myself into. You don't have to give a business everything of yourself. It doesn't have to be something that you burn out with, which lots of people, I think, is quite an old-fashioned mentality, that you have to give everything to a startup, and if it goes wrong, start your life from scratch. You don't need to do that. You can pace yourself and just listen and make sure you've got the right people around that see you as a person, not just a business.
Very clearly, like, thank you for sharing that. I think it's quite important that it shows like the human side of something that gets developed. And this is quite risky because it's the nature of the startup. But I guess now, like, zooming in a little bit on this process, because you mentioned about the different models you can take, and you like to call it as a startup because it's something that is about innovation. But if we want to describe more what was the process that took you from the idea and the motivation and the passion into developing this business, entrepreneurial opportunity, what was for you?
Yeah, which is something that I don't think I've been asked many times to reflect on this, because I would be very much the kind of person who'd say I just followed the opportunities. I'm very much a yes person. And if there's been help that's on offer, I'll take it. And I think I'd put myself forward into various grant funding opportunities. So one, the Innovate UK Young Persons Award some years ago, and through that came a year-long mentoring program as well as some funding. And I think through that, it started to build in an accountability in terms of developing that business. It wasn't a space of getting overwhelmed by a concept, and it wasn't a place of being overwhelmed by the potential of what I was supposed to be doing and what I was supposed to be putting out to the world. It was a space to be able to, like I've said, rebalance and look at the realities of what we could be doing. So for anyone who's looking at taking an idea into a startup and developing their own businesses, I would always say that going through a business incubator or going through grant funding mentoring services is a really great way of building structure early on, that I think has been really key in us getting this far down, because I think it's about 90% of startups that fail within the first 5 years, and I'm proud to say that we're still going. But that kind of business model, I think it's the nature of just doing it, and as soon as those opportunities are there and people are offering the help, take it. And that's why we've now got the Cross Design Studio, in which we support other startups going through these journeys, because it's so much insight and so much heartbreak and pain that's happened along the way, that we want to support other startups in making sure that they don't have to go through that process and that they can learn from our lessons. But every business is unique, and every product service that people are trying to put out there will have different models. So for us, like I've said, I've been very opportunity focused, but there are some people who may have more long-term strategy. But for me, the opportunity, as well as looking at exit strategy, has been really, really key in understanding that I've hopefully got a long life ahead of me, and I've hopefully got loads more ideas that are going to come, and that this is one of them within that journey. And not to put too much pressure on myself with that, but to say, right, I'm going to get as much as I can out of this. And it's probably maybe the most expensive or the cheapest business degree I've ever had in building this business. But to see that as a learning experience, to be able to do it again and again. And I definitely identify as a serial entrepreneur. And it's something that I've enjoyed this process, and getting the product to market has been so exciting. But this is my first time, and there'll be plenty more to come because things are ever changing.
I guess this idea of having an attitude, the right attitude to see the world around you is very fundamental, because it really gives you a specific perspective of the events that you're surrounded by, understanding what could be the right decision. And I guess on the side, like now you mentioned the word reflecting. Now that almost 10 years have passed since like the whole journey started, that if you were thinking about if I will start now, what I will say to myself now, like in the sort of distance, if kind of the younger you, what you would say to the younger you, also like the audience of people that we have that wish to have the same journey as you did and have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Which I think it would be a conversation around pressure, and that yes, there is demand, and yes, this is needed. But there was a point where I was hospitalized, where I'd become so stressed with life situations, business situations, work situations in general, and I'd become so stressed that I'd ended up in A&E because of an abscess caused by stress that had burst, become septic. And it was just a reminder that nothing exists of Helm, nothing exists of the Cross Design Studio, nothing exists of my work unless I exist. And sepsis is something that can take people within 15 minutes. I've even done a project around sepsis with London Bridge Hospital, raising awareness. And for me, that was an absolute reminder that I do not have to compromise my health for the sake of my business. And it's something that I have to constantly remind myself that I need to look after myself, yes, my health, but also looking after myself for the career development, being able to see opportunities, but also make those opportunities happen. For me, I love networking. I love meeting new people and hearing about people's ideas. And that's part of it. I can't just keep my head down and get stuck in patenting and IP and worrying about all of these things. And it's been really key for me to delegate and to find the right people around me to support. And it can be really, really hard as a founder to hand over responsibility, because you feel like you can never trust anyone to do it in the same way as you, which that may just be me. But being able to delegate, share responsibility, becoming a leader, that's a challenge in itself. And that becomes part of the journey, that if that's part of the conversation I could have with myself, to say, embrace becoming a leader. It's something that I think I would have surprised myself. I was always quite happy to be introverted, listening in, always told that the quietest person in the room hears the most, and that's a great place to be in. So to say embrace leadership opportunities, explore it the younger you are, and learn more so the older you are, you know what to do. There's no right or wrongs, but as long as you can go to sleep at night, you must be doing something okay. So the leadership journey is something that I'll continue to challenge myself on and continue to work on. But even here at the Helen Hamlin Centre where I'm working, I'm now teaching creative leadership around the world. So there are lessons that I'm learning, but we're sharing within those spaces too.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of fundamental, like collecting experiences, also like the idea of sharing that experience that you created. And then this is exactly the point of doing this type of conversations, because it's important that we know this and we wish to know before, I guess, before it happens. And this is the exact point why it's important to have to share knowledge and experience. And I guess like the question where I would like to take you now is more related to that we started this conversation with this idea of the challenge you decide to focus and the kind of societal value of that. But you created out of that something quite specific, which is the business opportunity, which is around the product, but more as a service. And now that years have come through, and then how do you think your Helm Innovation actually is contributing to society back, even within the space that you envision, or it changed? There is totally something different. You will never thought about that. So how this has changed from the beginning?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great question. And I think that in terms of the product and what it's giving back, there have been many lives lost at sea because of this fatal climb that happens. And for me, it's a reminder that there are people risking their lives to keep trade moving for us, and things that you can look around spaces and a lot of it would have been brought over on those cargo ships, but the person that climbed that ladder and took what's referred to as the leap of faith, that someone chose to do that, it's something that I would rather find a way of making it better, making it safer, as opposed to choosing to deal with it. And therefore I hope that families can sleep better at night. I hope that in terms of the trade, that welfare standards are increased and safety is respected a lot more. The maritime industry is very slow at changing, but this was an intervention in which we found a gap within regulation that we've been able to fill with a new positive invention to save lives. So in terms of a contribution there, it's something that I'm really proud that we've been able to fill. And in terms of impact outside of that, those lessons, yes, Helm is its own entity, and as I've said, it's just one of hopefully many. But the Cross Design Studio is where almost a sister company, where the team of people that worked on the products at Helm have all come into the studio to offer up their help to many more people. And it's a place where people come to us from very early on funding that say, we don't know how to get on to investment stage, and we can look at a project more holistically and help them in business plans. We can look at the IP information. We can help them in developing exit strategies, but most of all, we can support them in bringing their ideas to life. And for me, that's the most exciting thing. And when I managed to finally get Helm's products out there, that was the moment where I was like, tick, I've finally done it. And I would be so happy to do this for so many more people, but it's something that keeps us busy. And I hope we're having an impact by supporting other people trying to have an impact.
And having said that, so I appreciate a little bit more on this aspect, because what do you think is the innovation aspect? Because you started for something quite physical, which was the kind of the way the ladder gets rigged on the ship. But where do you think actually is the innovation shifted? How will you define innovation within the context of Helm now?
Yeah, which I think when we started Helm, innovation, almost the term around it was reflecting on the fact that the brief was perceived as a wicked problem, that where there hadn't really been solutions identified and they weren't perceived either. So innovation being something that can approach a wicked problem. That's how I think I would use the term. So we continue to look at challenges that are seemingly impossible to therefore come up with solutions for the impossible, and supporting other people in doing so. That I feel would be my definition for now anyway.
Of course it does change, you don't know. And last question is anything that I didn't ask you that you wish to share? You can take your time and reflect on that. I know this is kind of out of the blue.
Yeah. Well, I think it's not necessarily a question. I think something I'd like to kind of give back is to say to the students or the people that are listening in right now that it can just be an idea. It can be a 2-week idea. It can be a 2-month, 2-year idea. But I promise you, there's nothing special about me. Like I used funding that was gathered during projects. I didn't have extra income that supported me through this. I had a passion and a drive and the right people supporting me in giving me the information to do this, but it doesn't make me special. It's honestly just finding that purpose and pushing. I'm not particularly academic. I absolutely was rubbish at school, but coming into the design world, it was somewhere that I flourished, and finding that purpose was what brought the products to life. So if you're passionate about your field, your area, your product, your design, your service, be the person, explore it. If you want to bring it to market, you can make it happen, but surround yourself with the right people. And personally, if I can help, please do reach out. LinkedIn is a great space, but I want to inspire more people to challenge big corps and industries, because we can make a difference. I truly believe that. I'll forever be an optimist, but I'll forever support other people that see that as well.
Thank you very much for sharing this. I guess this idea of the weakness of challenges and society is something that is really daunting, because you don't know how to do it. It gets you stuck. And then thank you for sharing this idea of just, could be this idea of it doesn't have to be perfect, but actually something you feel motivated to develop something upon that. Actually it's a very great advice to the listener. So thank you very much, Maddie, for sharing your knowledge, your experience, and your ideas. I think that it's been quite inspiring to hear you and exactly the ups and downs of the journey you've been developing since you created Helm Innovation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Opportunity Talks, powered by the EPFL Future Leaders platform. For more information, please visit futureleaders.tools.